They say a man's words are just sounds, vibrations in the air. But that's the kind of thing boys say when they've never had to command a room, never had to stare into another man's eyes and decide if he walks out or if he never walks again. See, there's a language of the throne, a sound, a cadence, a heaviness in the tone that tells the world, this man answers to no one. And then there's the opposite, a boy's tongue, loose, software, unsure. He speaks quickly to fill the silence, to prove he's not afraid, but every syllable betrays the truth. He's terrified of not being seen. When I was a younger man, I remember sitting in a dark parlor with my father's oldest friend, Don Salvatore. He was the kind of man who didn't say much, but when he did, the room changed. Waiters stopped moving. Grown men held their breath. One night, a boy in our crew laughed too loud at something foolish, trying to win the Don's approval. Don Salvatore didn't raise his voice. He just looked at him, leaned back, and said, "You laugh like a clown, boy. And clowns die in alleys." Silence. The kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. That's what presence sounds like. That's what power sounds like. The truth is, your voice doesn't start in your throat. It starts in your spine. It starts in how you see yourself. Are you a man who believes he has the right to command? Or are you still asking for permission because every time you say maybe, every time you speak with that upward questioning tone, every time you stuff your sentences with filler, like, I guess, you're declaring to the world that you're not ready to lead. And the world? The world is listening. You can lift weights until your bones break, stack cash until it touches the ceiling, wear tailored suits with gold cufflinks. But if your voice trembles when you speak to another man's eyes, all of it crumbles. You're just a well-dressed peasant. And peasants don't run kingdoms. They get taxed, robbed, and forgotten. Let me tell you something cruel but necessary. People decide how much to respect you before they understand you. They judge by the way you carry your words. Is your tone clean? Are your pauses heavy? Do you leave space for silence, or do you fill every gap like a nervous child? A king does not explain, he declares. A boss does not ramble, he commands. A man with power does not ask to be heard, he expects silence. The boy, on the other hand, he performs. He tap dances with his tongue, hoping that someone out there will clap. He uses 10 words when 3 would be lethal. And when he feels resistance, he talks faster, as if speed could mask the weakness in his message. But let me give you something raw. Talking fast doesn't make you smart. It makes you anxious. And anxious men die in negotiations. Let's go deeper. There's something deeper than just speech patterns here. The way you talk is a mirror of your internal command. If your thoughts are chaotic, your words will be. If your mind is submissive, your tone will follow. The slave's tongue is always long. The master's short, final. You want to become a man who moves like a king? Then first you must speak like one. And speaking like a king starts by thinking like one. A king knows he is enough. He knows that silence is a weapon, not a weakness. He knows that when he finally opens his mouth, the room should brace itself. Let the boys giggle. Let them fumble over their own sentences, trying to be liked. That is not your path. Your words are bullets. Your tone is steel. And your voice is the echo of a man who fears nothing but mediocrity. Because if your tongue is soft, it's not just your voice that's weak, it's your whole damn life. In this life, silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of control. You see, in our world, words are like bullets. You only fire when it matters. And when you do, you better hit something. This is why the old ones, the real ones, the dons, the capos, the consiglieri, they speak in low tones, few words, and never more than necessary. Because they understand something that boys and loud men never will. Power isn't expressed by volume, it's revealed by restraint. We called it omerta, the code of silence. But outsiders always misunderstood it. They thought it was about hiding secrets. No, my friend, it was about wielding power, because when a man controls his tongue, he controls perception. And perception, in this world, is stronger than any pistol. Let me tell you how we were trained. In the early days, before you could carry anything on your waist, you had to master what you carried in your mouth. The rule was simple: speak when spoken to, and even then, choose wisely. The Don would sit at the head of the table, flanked by men who could make nations tremble. And yet, no one talked unless he gave the nod. One wrong word could make the air change, and when it did, it got cold. Fast. There was one soldier, new blood, who spoke out of turn just once. He tried to impress, threw out some clever remark during a sit-down. The Don didn't blink. He just wiped his mouth with a napkin, placed it gently on the table, and said, "A man who talks too much has already betrayed himself." That kid never spoke again without trembling, and he never sat at that table again either. Listen carefully. Silence isn't weakness. It's a signal. It says, I am watching, I am calculating, and when I speak, it will matter. That's the voice of a boss. That's the voice of a man who doesn't need attention. He already has presence. It follows him like smoke follows fire. You see, words are cheap when they're many, but when they're few, they become currency. The fewer you spend, the more they're worth. You want your words to shake something inside people? Then say less. Pause more. Let your eyes speak before your lips move. Let the silence around your words grow so loud, people beg to hear your next sentence. There's a tactic we used in negotiations, something the street never taught, but the table always enforced. Pause. When the other man finishes speaking, don't respond immediately. Wait. Let the silence press against his skin. Let him wonder what you're thinking. The longer the silence, the more pressure he feels. That's how you shift control without saying a damn word. This is the power of weighted words, words that land like bricks, words that make men stop chewing. You don't get that by practicing speeches in the mirror. You get that by living with consequence. Every Don I ever met, real ones, not the movie kind, had this gravity when they spoke, not because they yelled, but because when they did speak, you felt it in your chest. You knew. This wasn't just a voice, it was a verdict. Do you want to be feared, respected, obeyed? Then control your damn mouth. A man who speaks too easily is a man who bleeds too easily. Loose lips don't just sink ships, they build gallows, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Ask any man who's buried a brother because of a careless sentence. The streets remember every word. The boardroom remembers every slip. The woman you think you trust, she remembers everything. Your enemies don't need evidence when you've already testified against yourself in conversation. That's why the Don taught us to move in silence, speak in steel, and never explain twice. So here's the truth you've been avoiding. If your words are soft, it's because your discipline is soft. If you talk too much, it's because you think too little. And if you can't hold silence, you'll never hold power. The man who explains too much is already guilty, not in the eyes of the law, but in the court that matters, the eyes of other men. Every time you rush to clarify, to justify, to defend your decisions with words instead of results, you're confessing something. You're screaming, please believe me, please approve of me. And believe me, kid, that scent, that craving for validation, it's the cologne of the powerless. Let me give you a scene, a memory. Years ago, a young associate named Marco was given a simple task: collect a debt, no complications. But he botched it. Too much talking, tried to negotiate with someone who only understood leverage. The deal fell through, money lost, message diluted, so we called him in. Marco didn't sit like a man. He perched, fidgeted, and before anyone asked a damn thing, he started talking, explaining, recounting the play-by-play, voice high, hands moving. I thought this, I tried that, I just wanted to make sure. The Don raised a finger. Just one. That room? Dead silent. Marco, he said, real men don't explain. They deliver. He was gone the next morning. Not dead, but gone. That was worse. Banished. Erased. Because once a man shows that he needs to be understood more than he needs to be effective, he's no longer trusted. You see, explanation is a luxury. It's what you offer when your results aren't loud enough. When your presence doesn't silence the room, you try to make up for it with noise. It's pathetic. It's the behavior of boys raised by mothers who taught them that if they just communicate better, the world will go easier on them. Number. The world respects strength, not sob stories. Clarity, not confession. There's an old saying we had: justify nothing, prove everything. A man of weight speaks in outcomes. He doesn't care if you understand his process. He cares if the job is done, the point is made, the respect is intact. The weak, they beg for sympathy. They lace their sentences with, I meant well, and what I was trying to say, and you have to understand. Number, I don't have to understand. You have to perform. Let's break it even further. Why do you explain yourself so much? Because deep down, you're unsure. You don't trust your own judgment. You speak to reassure yourself, not just others. But that's like building a house and then trying to hold the walls up with your own hands. A true man, his actions are the bricks. His silence is the mortar. He doesn't stand next to his work begging for applause. He moves on because he knows it stands on its own. In every room, there are two kinds of men: the one who speaks to convince others, and the one who doesn't need to. The latter always wins, because in the arena of power, needing approval is the ultimate weakness. If you have to explain your authority, you've already lost it. Let me give you a harder truth. Sometimes silence makes people uncomfortable. They'll ask, why don't you say more? Or, aren't you going to explain yourself? And the answer is no, because kings don't play in the mud. They don't wrestle with peasants over perceptions. They stand still. They let their presence speak. And if someone doesn't get it, that's their problem. So here's your code now. Stop apologizing. Stop justifying. Stop explaining. Let your results speak. Let your tone be the conclusion. Let your life declare what your mouth never will. You talk like a man. When you can look someone in the eye and say, without flinching, that's what I said, that's what I meant, that's what I did, and then walk away. Whether they understand or not your concern. Because a man who needs to be understood will never be feared, and a man who is never feared is never free. Luca Moretti was a man born with gifts most would envy: sharp mind, quick hands, and a charisma that could part crowds like the sea. When he walked into a room, heads turned. When he spoke, people listened. But Luca made one fatal mistake. He thought words were weapons, when in fact they were evidence. He rose fast. Too fast. Don Ernesto brought him in young, saw promise, gave him tasks, and Luca delivered, smooth, efficient, charming. He could talk his way through anything: money disputes, rival sit-downs, even law enforcement inquiries. The older men watched, impressed but wary, because in our world, charisma is a tool, but overused, it becomes a crutch. One night, after a negotiation with a rival family that had gone sour, Luca returned to the Don's private office. I was there. The room was quiet. Always was. Red lamps, slow cigars, the air thick with power. Luca came in talking fast, filling the air with explanations, theories, justifications, hands moving, smile on his face. Ernesto didn't smile. He let him talk. That was the thing with the Don. He let you dig your own grave, word by word. After a full 10 minutes, Luca finally stopped, breathless. The room was silent. Don Ernesto leaned forward and asked just one question. You ever wonder why the old lions don't roar? Luca blinked, confused. The Don continued, because they don't need to. They've already tasted blood. It's the young, the uncertain, the loud ones, that roar for attention. I'll never forget Luca's face in that moment. A flicker of realization, maybe even fear. But it was too late. The Don stood. That's when I knew it was over. Luca, he said, you talk too much. You speak like a man who's afraid of silence. And silence, in this life, is where real men live. The next morning, Luca disappeared. No questions, no noise. That's how it works. You don't get warnings when your mouth has already written your execution note. Here's what you need to understand. Luca didn't die because of betrayal, or incompetence, or cowardice. He died because his tongue moved faster than his wisdom, because he thought being heard was more important than being strategic, and because he never learned the art of holding back. In this life, power isn't shown by how much you say. It's in what you hold. A real underboss knows when to shut his mouth, even when his ego screams to be heard. Luca never learned that, and the streets don't forgive men who speak like boys when surrounded by wolves. You might say, but he was smart. Yes, and that's what makes it tragic. Intelligence without discipline is just potential. And potential, my friend, is useless in a grave. So let me carve this into your memory. The world is not killed by bullets alone. It is killed by men who cannot shut up, by men who think every thought needs a stage, by men like Luca, brilliant, fast, smooth, and gone. Don Ernesto used to say, a man's voice should echo like a verdict, not rattle like a beggar's tin. That's the law. That's how kings survive. And that's why Luca's name is only whispered now. A lesson in what happens when a man thinks his words are stronger than his silence. Don't be like Luca. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them fear the silence between your sentences. Let your presence be a loaded gun, not a loud parade. There's something poetic about how men fall. They rarely collapse from force. No, that would be too honest. They crumble through erosion. One soft word, one unnecessary comment, one misplaced sentence at a time. Until one day they look in the mirror and realize they don't speak like men anymore. They speak like jesters, performers in their own tragedy. You want to know the real difference between a boy and a boss? It's not the money, not the suits, not even the body count. It's the tone. It's the space between his words. The boy speaks to be liked. The boss speaks to be obeyed. The boy looks for approval in reactions. The boss expects alignment through presence. When a king enters a room, he doesn't announce it. His silence does. The tragedy is, most men never make it past the boy phase. They talk too much, explain too often, smile too wide. They water down their voice until it becomes background noise, the kind of noise no one respects, no one fears, and eventually no one hears. I've watched men climb empires and fall from them, all because their mouth moved faster than their legacy could catch. Let me tell you something brutal. Every time you speak without calculation, you lower your value. Every time you answer a question that wasn't asked, you shrink. Every time you justify a choice instead of letting it speak through results, you look less like a king and more like a clown. And the world? The world doesn't warn clowns. It laughs, then it discards. You want to command respect, then become allergic to unnecessary speech. Practice silence like a martial art. Speak like every word is gold, because in the rooms that matter, they are. And once you realize how expensive real speech is, you'll start treating your voice like a weapon, not a hobby. I've sat across from killers who said less in an hour than most men say in a minute. But every sentence they spoke stayed with me for years, because they didn't talk to express, they talked to execute. You want to lead? Then you must understand. Your voice is not for decoration, it is for domination. And domination begins with scarcity. A true king speaks like thunder, rare but unmistakable. His words don't beg for attention, they demand response, not by volume, not by repetition, but by weight, by presence, by an unshakable belief that he has nothing to prove and everything to command. So I'll leave you with this. You can continue talking like a boy, and the world will treat you as one. Or you can master your tone, sharpen your silence, and become a voice that reshapes rooms and realigns men. Because in this life, you either speak like a king or you die like a clown. And the graveyard? It's full of funny men.